Thought about doing this some time ago when I read something in the paper about just getting ready about our mystery guest, and it seemed like a good idea, a better idea then than it does now. But so we got some slides, and we're going to toast and roast this individual today. So, John, if you'll put the first slide up there.
John, move the box.
This has not been rehearsed, by the way. Anybody recognize that mystery man? Well, he had some nicknames. He was known as Underdog, Mighty Mouse, Fish, Old Mo, but I think it should be Charlie Brown because everybody's always picking on him. Lee Mays, would you please come forward? Seat of honor right here. Now, Lee's a former Rotary president. His dad was longtime treasurer, and his dad's responsible for our scholarship fund, which we get interest off of each year to help pay for our scholarships. For those who didn't know, Lee was the first person in Camden to have polio. And we don't have a lot of his early years here, but by the time he got to high school, he was really excelling. Okay. This is Lee's senior picture, 1953. You can look, Lee. Next. On the upper left, Lee was president of the student council in high school. Okay. Here he is. He's voted the most popular. Lee, do you know who that girl is?
Mims.
Mims? That first name or last name? And he's also voted best all around. You know that girl?
Yeah, that's Evan Bellows.
He's also a first lieutenant in the concert band, and he played the trumpet. But he really excelled in sports. We got a picture, he's number 20 there, if you can see him sort of the middle left. Smallest one on the team. He had to have special permission to go out for football. And back in those days, there was a great tailback at Camden named Horace Turbeville. And Lee always told me that he made Horace what he was because Horace was dyslexic, and Lee had to tell him which way to go on everything. Okay. Now this was in the yearbook. It says Lee Mays fullback, and if you remember the old single wing fullback did different things. It's also known as a spin back, and he was sort of the quarterback. He'd get the ball and hand it to somebody or throw it, whatever. So he also played linebacker on defense. And at halftime, he would come out in his band uniform and play with the band, the marching band, out on the field. Did I say his band uniform? Come out in his football uniform. Okay, now this picture reminded me a couple of years ago. I saw a picture in Yesterday of Sports, or a write-up. It said that Camden lost to Hartsville 45-42. Guy Hutchins, who you see on the bike, was a high scorer with 15 points, and Lee Mays played his usual good floor game. Well, I've known him 40 years, and I never knew he played basketball, so I started snooping something. So this is a picture of the basketball team. You recognize any of them, Lee?
Oh, yeah, except I can't call them names out.
So who are the others?
Davis Green, Jimmy Green, Guy Hutchinson,
Yep.
and
We didn't know. Anybody know him? Anybody know number 20 there? So, okay, then the next one shows Lee going in for a dunk. Okay. And Lee was a great baseball player. I don't know who all these players are. Do you remember any of them other than you? Lee's right there in the middle.
Spanish Shaheen on the end, Kenny Davis, and I can't think of him.
That's pretty good. That's a couple. But I asked Lee what position he played the other day, and he said he played everything but catcher. And what a lot of people didn't know, Lee was ambidextrous. Sometimes didn't even use a glove. He could catch the ball with either ear equally well. So then it was off to college. He had a hard decision to make when he got out of high school. He had 2 scholarship offers. One was academic scholarship to Wofford, and the other was a boxing scholarship to Carolina. And fortunately, he took the academic scholarship. And this is a picture. Guy on the left is Stassi Gaffis, a dentist in Columbia, who was from Camden. The middle is Davis Green and Lee. And a few months ago, I was talking with Stassi Gaffis, and he said he was a hot-shot high school player, really one of the best in the state. So he played in the city tournament the first year that Lee came back after being at Wofford. Lee was on the Wofford tennis team, and he said he beat my brains out. All right, here's Old South at Wofford. You can see Lee sort of in the middle left there. There you go. And he was a party animal. You haven't seen Lee do the rubber legs to 60-minute man. You haven't seen that. And I asked him if he could still do it, but he said no. But I don't know. He might get jacked up a bit today. He played in a band while at Wofford called Aristocrats. Got ahead of me there, John. And he had a paper route. Every morning he'd get up and deliver papers. And so I can imagine him coming in after playing all night, just going by and picking up his papers and delivering them the next day. According to the story Peggy told me, his mother would send him $5 every week. And Jimmy Green would usually use most of that playing the pinball machine. So Lee always kind of liked to act old. Next slide. So he went to the oldest dental school in the United States in Baltimore. And then it was into the Army. Air Force, I'm sorry. He was in France. He took a 2-year stint in France. And next picture is another picture of Lee, and that would strike fear into the Russians anytime. But he had so much fun, he extended for another year, so he stayed in France. Now, we know some of the stories. Next picture there. This is a car that he toured around France in. And the story has it that he had a French girlfriend that went a lot of places with him. And I don't think anybody's ever seen a picture of this girlfriend. So he must have destroyed them all when he came back. So the next picture there shows Lee coming out of this building, zipping up his pants. So practiced a few months with Dr. Henson while his office was getting ready. And how long was your practice, Lee, in Camden?
47.
47 years. He worked in spit, so. And after a time, he hired this cute little dental assistant named Peggy, and she proved to be such a distraction that he married her just so he could get her out of the office. Lee is disciplined in everything that he does. If you notice, he's the first to Rotary. He sits in the same chair every time. When he was practicing, he was at the office at 8, the post office at 10:30, the lunch at 12, post office at 3:30, and home at 5 every day. Okay, next. These are his beautiful daughters. I think this is at Reeby's wedding. Now, just to prove his manhood and that he was better than Ernest Hemingway, he went out and caught this 347-pound marlin. Okay. Here's that patented golf swing. We see him there, and then there's an article after this. Shot his first hole in one. He had a 5-hole stretch where he was 5 under par and shot a 75. Okay. Now, these are some of his golf buddies. And as some of you know, Lee's had, we don't know how many TIAs he's had, but he's had a few. And one of them happened on the golf course while he was with these people. So while he was in sort of a dumbfounded, semi-comatose state, they said, okay, Lee, come sit in the cart and we'll finish the round and take you to the hospital. Now, one thing that Lee does not do is yard work. So Glenn Tucker lives across the street from Lee, and one day, at some weak moment, he went out and deadheaded some pansies, so he made first page, and everybody thought he was a great yard worker. Now, my staff enjoys bantering around with Lee when he comes by the office, and a few years ago we were at a conference in Charlotte, had 4 of my staff members, and Lee was with us. So we were going out to dinner. 3 of the girls were in the back, 1 was in shotgun, and Lee and I were sitting next to each other. So we get to a busy intersection, and people walking by, cars on both sides. So all the girls in the car duck down, and here Lee and I sit And I guess, of course, I've picked on Lee over the years, but the one thing that got more notoriety than anything else was the tiger paw crown. And back when Lee needed a crown on a molar, so we carved him up a gold crown, and I put a big tiger paw on the inside of it, but didn't show it to him until we got it cemented. So the next week was the Carolina Cup, so Lee walked around here like showing him. Hey, he's the best sport in the world, I tell you. Okay, this is his retirement photo. And I talked to him a number of times about retiring. One day he had been to lunch, I think at Everyday Gourmet with his buddies. And he comes by the office and said, I'm going to retire in September. And I said, okay, let me know what I can do to help. And so he goes home then, tells Peggy. And he says, but I don't know what I'm going to do when I retire. She said, well, I do some stuff for the soup kitchen. I'm thinking about getting a lawnmower. You can cut the grass and help in the yard. And 3 or 4 other things. This is a true story. So he gets back to the office. And I guess just before he goes to the post office, he calls and said, honey, I think I'm going to work a while longer. But all who know him appreciate his good humor, and no one enjoys a humorous event more than he. And even when the joke's on him. So Lee, thanks for being a great guy. anything? You like to correct any of those stories? Anybody else like to embellish any of those stories or have one of their own that they want to tell? If not, thank you.